Planning the day. Now, I don't think many people would argue that planning your day is one of the most critical things you could do if you want to become better organized and more productive. But how many of you are actually consistently doing this every day, including weekends? Now, I know for many people, planning the day is just another thing I have to do. Well, no, you don't have to do it, but there are a few things that are occurring during the day that really have an impact on whether you are going to get important things done or you're going to end up doing a lot of busy work, ending the day feeling exhausted and having thought, what did I do today? One of my favorite movies of all time is the movie Apollo 13.
Houston, we have a problem.
Now, there is a scene in the movie where Ken Mattingly, the character Ken Mattingly, played by Gary Sinise, is trying to work out a proper sequence in order to restart the command service module.
Look, I know this sequence works, John.
The sequence looks good. We're just over budget on the amperage.
By how much?
3 or 4 amps.
God damn it, John. Is it 3 or 4?
4. 4!
This is, if you're familiar with the Apollo 13 story, it's a true story. This is basically where 3 astronauts almost got abandoned in space. Now, I'm not going to go into the full plot of that movie, but safe to say that they were limited by having only 16 amps of power to restart the command service module before re-entry. Now, this caused a major headache because everybody wanted their features, their systems up and running, but they were limited. They couldn't do it. Well, this is the same for you. You also have a limited resource every single day. That resource is time. You only have 24 hours, and I'm pretty sure you don't want to be doing 24 hours of work day in, day out. So you are limited to the amount of time you're willing to put into your work each day. So to help you here, I want to introduce you to something I call the daily planning sequence. Now, the word sequence is very important here because you have to follow the sequence. You can't rearrange this sequence. There is one way to do it, and it's really quite simple, and it's only going to take you 5 minutes a day, probably less on the quieter days, weekends, for example. So the first step in this sequence is to look at your calendar for your appointments today. That is going to tell you how much time you actually have available for doing your tasks. If you've got 6 hours of meetings, that really means if you're working a typical 8 or 9 hour day, that you've only got 2 or 3 hours in order to do your tasks today. There's nothing more. There's no more time. You only have that amount of time. This is the first place to look. Your calendar is going to tell you how much time or power, if we're using the Apollo 13 analogy, that you have for the day in order to complete your tasks. The second step in the sequence is to then look at your task manager. Now, given that you may only have 3 or 4 hours of time in order to do your tasks, this is what you're looking at. How many of these tasks that I feel I should do can I get done today? Most of us have no idea how to estimate how long something will take. I have no idea. I've been writing blog posts every week for nearly 10 years, and I still cannot estimate or predict with any degree of accuracy how long the first draft will take. Sometimes it's 45 minutes, other times I need 90 minutes. It really does depend on my energy levels in the day. So being able to predict how much time you can spend on a task is a real big challenge, but that's for another video. So essentially what we've looked at is we've got our calendar. It's telling us how much time we have left. Now, if you've only got 2 or 3 hours and you've got 30 tasks on your task list, you've now got an impossible day. It's disastrous. It's not going to happen. Doesn't matter how you feel in terms of what's urgent and what's not urgent. If you've got 30 tasks and you think, I've got to do them, I've got to do them, I've got to do them, but you've only got 2 or 3 hours in order to do them in, Forget it, it's not going to happen unless you're willing to take your work home and let it interfere with your personal life, which I never ever would recommend. So essentially what we need to do is we need to take that list and to really break it down into a realistic list. Now what we're doing essentially is removing the unimportant tasks. Now there is an advantage to this. What you'll find is unimportant tasks have a habit of sorting themselves out. So you probably would never need to do them if you actually just delay doing them a few days. But what you're looking at is, let's say you've got 2 or 3 hours, that's all you've got. That's probably like 5 or 6 tasks that you can do that day. That doesn't include responding to emails, dealing with interruptions, and anything else that's going to come at you that day. A realistic list might only be 4 or 5 tasks. That's fine, because if that's the only time you have, if you've only got, say, 2 or 3 hours in order to do your task, and perhaps you need to eat in that time, maybe that's just going to leave you with 2 hours to do tasks today. Fine. All those appointments are in your calendar. They're sort of non-negotiable. So what do you have time for in order to do your task? Make that list realistic. Reschedule tasks, move things around. Just make sure that you've got a realistic task list. The final step in this process is to then prioritize that list. Now, I always think of this in terms of what are my 2 must-do tasks for today? That's really what I'm looking for. Occasionally there will be 3, but for the most part, it's generally 2. I try to limit it to 2. This means that basically what I need to do or can do is bring out probably the best invention ever, the best technological invention ever, and that is an A7 notebook. Now what I generally would do, particularly on busy days where I need to stay focused, I'm going to write those down on this piece of paper and I'm going to stick this on my desk. Well, just leave it on my desk. The reason for this is because this will be always in my eyesight throughout the day. If I try to leave this in my digital task manager, what's going to happen is when I'm working on a Word document, a Google Sheet, maybe I'm trying to create a presentation, I'm not going to see my task manager. It disappears. Neither am I actually going to see my calendar. I don't have multiple screens. I work with a maximum of 2 screens. And if I'm building a presentation or writing a blog post or doing a report, you know, my notes are over on the smaller screen and my main screen has my writing tool of choice. So I'm now not looking at what's most important today. So I put them down on a little A7 notebook. Now you don't have to use an A7 notebook. You can use anything. But what I would suggest is be very careful about relying on a digital to-do list simply because it will be out of sight for most of the day and it's not going to keep that focus for you. But that's it. The 3-step process is check your calendar for your appointments. Then look at your to-do list and make sure that this is realistic based on the amount of time you have left outside of your meetings. And finally, prioritize that list. Now, I would love to claim this system as my very own. It isn't. This has been around for a very long time. The far back as the early 1990s, to be precise. It was in the Franklin Planner. That was the daily planning process. And it is a process, but it's more than that. It's actually a sequence that you can do every single day to make sure that you're focused on the important things. And that's it. 3 steps in a sequence. Check your calendar. See how much time you have left in order to do your tasks. Then create a realistic list based on the time that you have. And finally, prioritize that list so your most important tasks are at the very top or on a piece of paper. Now, before I finish on this, there is something else that I should mention here. When we're looking at our calendar, if we see I've got 6 hours of meetings, that would leave me with 3 hours of time to do my tasks. The reality is you've got to think of interruptions and disruptions. You're going to be asked questions. You're going to get phone calls. You're going to have urgent emails to deal with. You're also going to have Slack, Teams, or whatever messages coming at you. So really, you don't actually have those 3 hours. You probably at best have 90 minutes to do your tasks. That really does help to get you focused on what really matters today. And that's it. That's all you need in order to get yourself focused every day. It takes 5 minutes, nothing more. And I can promise you, you'll start to see some really incredible results. Now, if you want to learn more about weekly planning, then this video up here will explain the weekly planning matrix right here.